Today I will be sharing my thoughts on Srimad Bhagavad Gita out of my book, A Seeker Srimad Bhagavad Gita. I request you to please take a look at the book and let me know what you think about it. Thank you. Verse 4 to 6. Also, it is said that when one has risen in yoga, then there is no clinging to sense objects or actions, and there is detachment from all drive of the will. So, elevate the soul by the soul itself. Do not allow the soul to drop in performance of the soul. In truth, its only associate and the only adversary of the soul is itself. The soul becomes relative when the soul is conquered by the soul. However, the soul of the unconquered soul will be an enemy until it is conquered by the soul. These are beautiful three verses, especially the last two, 5 and 6, and we will engage with these two verses in great detail. But for now, let us start with verse 4. Also, it is said, when one has risen in yoga, then there is no clinging to sense objects or actions, and there is detachment from all drive of the will. So let us try and understand what is risen in yoga. How can one rise in yoga? As we know, yoga is a yoking. And in the initial period, when we are yoked to any other object, we are initially in a period of dance, or we are constantly transacting with the object. This is called lasya or lust. When we begin to resonate with the object, then slowly the differences between us and the object begin to diminish in the form of the annamaya kosha, the pranamaya kosha, the manomaya kosha, the vijnanamaya kosha slowly begin to disappear between the two of us. We do not think differently from the object. We begin to resonate with the object. Though the rupa may be different, everything else within begins to slowly dissipate and disappear. To achieve that very high level of yoga, so the process of integrating with the object is the rising in yoga. Let us now look at the second question. Why should we remove attachment to sense objects and sankalpa? Before we go into detail on this particular question, let us first get an understanding of the word sankalpa. Sam means equal, kalpa means fit. So, sankalpa means bridging the gap to bring equality or rhythm. That is, when we are looking at something, we see a difference between that and us. When we see a difference between that and us, or we perceive a gap in the need for action, we then apply our will to bridging that gap. That bridging of the gap, I am hungry, so I need to eat. The understanding of hunger and identifying the need to eat drives sankalpa. I am going to eat food. I am going to eat food is a derivation of the identification of hunger. We find a root cause and we try to assuage that gap by performing of karma. That is sankalpa. What Sri Krishna says here is that if you can remove that sankalpa in your action, then what happens is that you begin to rise in yoga. Now that is quite difficult. So let us look at the concept of karma itself and why the sankalpa is such an impediment to rising in yoga. We know that attachment comes from fear or desire. The desire to eat, hunger drives desire to eat. Fear is, suppose we don't study, we will not do well in the exam. So the fear of the consequence of not doing well in the exam drives us to studying harder. That fear of loss of self esteem or of consequences leads us to apply our will to perform. So, what happens is that when we act, there is a give and a take between the subject and the object. Because there is a give and a take between the subject and the object, there is a relative movement. This can be translationary, this can be rotationary, this can be vibration, it can be anything. But there is a relative movement. And this relative movement results in action. This action is called karma. However, when we act, the transaction is never balanced. Some of us give more, some of us get more. And this difference inequality or the gap between give and take is called rin or debt. Because once we incur debt or when someone incurs debt upon us, that debt has to be repaid either in this life or in the next life. So this bond that is created as a result of this debt is called Rinanu Bandhana, and it has to be paid off even if it means taking on another life. This is the basis on which samsara, the cycle of birth and death, is evolved. We can see that the creation and the dissolution of debt is continuous. When we create debt, whatever debt we are creating now, whatever debt I am creating now is called agami karma. And you can see that in the last square. All that agami karma goes to what is called sanchita karma or the overall ledger of debt. Whatever debt is coming down now for repayment is called prarabdha karma. However, we are part of a macrocosm. We are a microcosm as an individual, and we are part of a macrocosm, which is the universe. The rules of the universe automatically will supersede our karma. So that is called samasti karma. That is, COVID affected everybody. So even if you had the most beautiful karma, samasti karma will impact you. The Ukraine war impacts everybody in the world to differing extents. Obviously, people in Ukraine and Russia will be impacted the most. All over the world, oil prices will change, movement of people is affected, logistics is affected, everybody is impacted to varying degrees. This is samasti karma. So let us go back to the original question. Why should we remove attachment to sense object? We have noticed that karma comes when we are attached to an action. Why is that important? Because any debt that comes to us as individuals. That debt has to be resolved by us. That means the individual is the one who is carrying the debt. The I is carrying the debt. If I was to take a loan from a bank, the loan is given to me as an individual. The minute I die, I don't carry the loan anymore. If I have no bank balance, the bank cannot take anything more from me. That loan is written off. So that means that the I, the individual, carries that debt. And so, if there is no individual, there is no creation of debt. There is no sustenance of debt. There is no dissolution of debt. So the I is in this case, aham is the I or the Purusha that manifests as I am. That is my understanding of the universe. I am this room, this entire setting. When my awareness is there, it is called asmita. When I act and I own an action, it becomes ahankara. That means I am the doer. My understanding of being the doer, my understanding that I need to go buy food in order to cook, I am doing it. I have got first rank. When I say I am the doer, I have got the first rank. I am the one who is achieving. Automatically, the karma begins to hold to the I. When one does not force the issue, then what happens? Whether it comes or it does not come, the aham is indifferent to the outcome. It is indifferent to someone liking or disliking the individual. This is the key difference. This is what Sri Krishna is trying to say. When one acts without clinging to sense objects, then there is detachment from all drive of the will. This is a very nuanced verse which we need to understand. Verse 5. So elevate the soul by the soul itself. Do not allow the soul to drop in performance of the soul. In truth, its only associate and the only adversary of the soul is itself. Here, we need to do a deep dive into a very important concept of the soul. The soul by itself is the summation of all the identities that exist within the body. The body by itself is a summation of multiple souls. For example, the heart has its own identity. The heart cannot do the job of a stomach. The stomach cannot do the job of an intestine. Each of these have their own identities. So, the body that we are in, the sharira that we have, is a summation of all these individual modules that integrate to form the human being. But the net action is by the individual. So, that karma that is created by the individual resides in the soul or the atma. Let us go to verse 6 also, because if we can integrate the two, we will be able to understand it better. The soul becomes a relative when the soul is conquered by the soul. However, the soul of an unconquered soul will be like an enemy until it is conquered by the soul. Here he is talking about two souls. Is that possible that somebody has two souls within the self? Let us reflect on our own lives. Whenever we act, we will be immersed in an action, and there will be something that will tell us, no, this is not what you're supposed to do. You are supposed to do something else. Suppose you're playing, and suddenly there will be something that is telling you you need to stop playing and start working. Suppose you're watching a YouTube video. Suddenly there will be a voice within that says that this is enough. You need to start doing something else. You need to start cooking. You need to start cleaning, whatever. So there is obviously an actor, somebody who's acting, and there is an observer, somebody who's observing. These two are distinctly different, which is the two souls that are resident in the self. Let us say that one soul is the guru soul, the one that is constant, that is not engaged but observing. When we are acting in the world around us, when we are looking at what we do and we engage with society, the transactional element that engages with nature, with the universe, is always hyperactive. It is constantly receiving data, processing data, and responding. The way it responds is through conditioning or dharma, and that is the dharma that we always have from the childhood. I mean, how is dharma built up? When we are born, our parents give us our operating system. That is the operating system we keep for life. Then we go to school where all the major softwares are loaded on us. And then we begin to resonate, or we get integrated into a network called society. And then we begin to integrate and interact with everybody else. When we do that, we begin to behave in a particular manner. So there is an overlapping of dharma of a society and the dharma of the individual, which is our swadharma. And that is how we interact with society. Obviously, that is not the most optimum way of working. So there is an ideal dharma, a guru dharma, that is the anchor, which tells us that the perfection that we need to reach is within. And that perfection that exists within us is a amsham, or a part of the perfect truth, or the Brahman. That never changes, it never moves, it never recedes, it is constantly there. But our need to survive and to understand ourselves in society is so high that we continuously try to force ourselves to transact. And that gives us that feeling that we are the doer. So there are two souls that are continuously engaging with the universe. The transactional soul is the normal aham, asmita, ahankara, that atma. The one that is within, that is observing and constantly giving biofeedback to the soul, the ahankara, is the observer. And that often is not heard because the cacophony of the universe is so high, and our engagement with the universe is so high, that often that is not heard. And that is why most sannyasis, most advanced people will try to recede into silence, because only in silence can you hear that soul, or that atma, the guru atma, the anchor atma, what it is trying to tell you and how it is trying to integrate you with the Brahman. And that is what Sri Krishna is trying to say. Let's again look at the questions. What is the Atma, self or soul? Where does it reside? How does it carry our debts? So we've already been through that. The Atma, there are two types. One is the Atma which is engaging with the universe. It resides, or both of them reside within ourselves. In the same point which many rishis have said, it's somewhere around the heart and on top of the heart, the size of the phalange of a thumb. I have no experience, so I cannot agree or disagree with it. How does it carry our debt? We've already been through the process of debt creation and dissolution. What is the performance of the soul? This is an awareness called prajna, and it is the awareness of the soul that decides how our evolution in yoga will be. For example, prajna comprises of two parts, two components. Vijnana, that is the outside transactional element where we look at the universe as a datum, as a three-dimensional entity, and we transact with it in various forms. And there is the second part which is resident within the what I call the Guru Atma. It's not the Paramatma, it is the Guru Atma. Paramatma has got other connotations. So I would prefer to call it a Guru Atma, something that is an anchor that keeps throwing light at our actions and telling us to try and change course so that we are more in resonance with our universe. This particular thing is awareness. It's the jnana, that internal awareness that we are acting in a particular manner and the need to stop thinking that it is the self. So, to remove sankalpa, you need that Guru Atma. That Atma, you have to listen to it and then slowly say, I am not the doer. It's hard, but it has to be done. Why is the Atma its own friend and foe as well as foe? So when you are listening to the Guru Atma, the Atma within which is the observer, in the Western world, this is called the conscience. Something that tells you all the time that this is not what you should be doing, this is the right thing to do, kind of stuff. It really doesn't matter what you call it. It is the observer, the one that is constantly observing and constantly advising you to change course or correct course or whatever. When the operational Atma is not listening to the Guru Atma, then the operational Atma, the transactional Atma, is continuously engaged in its own actions using ahankara. Oh, I'm great, I'm doing a great job. However, when that subsides, then the light sound of the Guru Atma begins to get heard. But that's not enough. You have to start acting as per that Guru Atma. When you start acting as per Guru Atma, then the transactional Atma begins to withdraw. And when that withdrawal begins to happen, the resonance between the transactional and the Guru Atma begins to increase. And then there is a further integration with what you could call Paramatma, and thereafter an integration with the Brahman, which is the state of null. So let us look again at how one can remove the attachment to sense objects. So, as I have said, there is the sentient interface. The sentient interface is what we call the transactional Atma. And the prajna covers the entire spectrum. Consciousness is the movement, the identification of objects that we have. The camera has its own consciousness. The microphone has its own consciousness. Because of their consciousness, I am able to identify them as that. That consciousness is the chitta, the packets of information that come to us, which we then process through our indriyas, the sense organs. And that processed information is collated in our manas, which comprises the amygdala, the HP axis, all of that. All the data comes in into our manas, then using the memory as well as our logic, which is the buddhi. That is compared with our dharma, which is our conditioning. And that then results in the aham or the asmita experiencing fear or desire. When the fear or desire is then experienced, that is the source of formulation of a response. And when the response happens, the person begins to feel, I am the doer, I am doing. And then the real action, the karma begins to manifest. But remember, karma has manifested the minute ahankara has started processing the data. The minute the stimulus comes and the engagement has started, karma has begun to manifest. The one that is experiencing all that is the transactional Atma. The one that is observing all this and saying, boss, calm down. You don't need to get hassled by this. Or it says that you need to stop thinking that everything is bad. No. So what happens is that which is constantly advising the soul to calm down is the Guru Atma. And once all these, the Indriyas, the Manas, the Buddhi, slowly come down, and the variability in the data analysis reduces. Then the calmness results in that soul beginning to resonate with the guru soul or the conscience or whatever. And that results in a person being able to integrate with the Brahman. This is why verse 5 and verse 6 are so important, because here you will see, he says, the soul becomes a relative when the soul is conquered by the soul. However, the soul of an unconquered soul will be like an enemy until it is conquered by the soul. So, for as long as you are gripped with what you are doing, you will always be thinking that you are the doer. So, it will become an enemy of the guru soul, which is trying to say, "Arey boss, calm down. This is not, this is transactional. This is not permanent. This is not the truth." However, when you begin to listen to that guru soul, or you begin to pay attention, then that cacophony that you are in, that enormous amount of churning that you are experiencing, will subside. So, when that becomes a relative, then there is no dissonance. However, if you are not listening to that, you're saying, stop watching your YouTube videos and start working. Stop playing games and start working. Do this. Look after your parents. Don't start getting hassled by, don't go chasing something else. When you start paying attention, your decision making changes. Your change management process changes. How you view change becomes different. Sankalpa is no longer a factor of what you want or desire or your fears. Change management for you becomes one where you accept the temporariness of change, and then you realize that this too shall pass, and you begin to slowly stop getting hassled by small things and start paying attention to that soul which is advising you on how to calm yourself and move or integrate your two various souls, and then integrate with the Paramatma or the soul of the universe, and thereafter transcend that also and merge with the Brahman. Thank you. This summarizes verse 4 to 6 of chapter 6, Dhyana Yoga. Yoga is the movement of the cognition from turbulence to stillness, from cacophony to silence, from a sense of doership or ahankara to inertness or bhasma. Thank you for watching. Please do comment. Please do like, share, and subscribe to my channel. And for more information, please do visit my website www.schoolofyoga.in.